You guys, so bear with me.
Do you need me to remind you? You sure?
Maybe you can run it. All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to open the Village Council regular meeting, July 9th, 2024. Show the time at 6:01 p.m., and I show we have a full quorum. That said, we'll move right to the adoption of the agenda. Do we have any changes?
I need to add consent agenda number 6, consider dissolving the Marvin Day Planning Subcommittee and allow staff to proceed with a volunteer working group and consider adoption of the July 9th Marvin Day Planning Subcommittee meeting minutes.
Okay, anything else? Has that been reflected on the latest? Okay. All right, that said, I'll need a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Next up, we have adoption of the previous minutes. Any questions, concerns? Just would like to note, Kim never called on me for council comments when I was on the phone, but that's
You're
okay.
right, I surely did not. My apologies.
I had a lot to say.
I forgot about you.
That's all right. I'm not
Sorry.
offended. All right.
Maybe if you wanted to say something, you'd have said something.
Need a motion to approve the adoption of the previous minutes.
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up, we have Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That never gets old. All right. Public comment period. I'm going to ask, I think we had something submitted I saw that we will not read, I don't believe, but if there's anybody else, just read them off to me. Just a reminder, state your name, address, and you'll have 3 minutes. Kim will keep a timer, and we'll have you 3 minutes for your comments. There's no interaction with council or debate or anything, just comments.
So yeah, you do have that one submitted comment that's already been in your packets. But first up here is Ron Hamill, 3219 Oak Brook Drive.
All right, Ron, if you can come up. And is the speaker on?
And you just have to hit the button.
Hello, folks.
Hello.
Ron Hamill, as he said, 3219 Oak Brook Drive. My thing is about the budget. We're going to be talking about increasing the deputy. He got an 11.3% raise for the year 24-25. And my questions were to him and to you guys and to anybody else in Marvin. First of all, we have those 3 little signs that tells people how fast they're going in case their speedometers aren't working correctly. And the first one we have is on Marvin Road, which he'll be telling you how many cars we had was 183,366 vehicles. The speeders were 41,566 speeders in the month of June. He usually doesn't tell you that amount. It usually just tells you the highest speed was 122 miles per hour, and the average speed is 42. But when you think of 41,566 speeders, that's a lot. Waxhaw Marvin, same scenario, 177,680 cars, 55,857 speeders. Average speed was 43.6, and the maximum speed was 80. This goes on Marvin School Road, 19,883 cars. 19,838 cars were speeders. That's almost everybody. The average speed is 36.56. The speed limit through there is 35 miles per hour. The maximum speed is 61. Waxhaw Marvin near Bonds Road, that was 404,008 cars, and the speeders were 33,878. 40.6 was the average speed. Maximum speed was 79. That's 784,937 cars, and this is all for the month of June, excuse me. And that was a total of 151,139 speeders. In the average year, that would be 9,419,244 cars going through those intersections. And that would be 1,813,668 speeders. Now, if we just wrote a few tickets, that would pay for that $6,000 increase that Joe wants for the budget. And it would pay for it and it would offset each other. And it might detour a few speeders or throw them in jail and we'd get more money. The deputy might be able to answer that when it's his turn to come up. Does the money that, when the tickets are written, does it come back to Marvin? Doesn't come back to Marvin.
I'm sorry, that's time.
Time is
Thank
up.
Okay,
you.
time's up.
Thank you.
Okey-doke. Well, maybe somebody else didn't want to speak and I can have more time, since you allow 30
Still
minutes.
3 minutes, just so we can keep.
Well,
this
that was about
meeting
it.
going.
Okay,
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
appreciate
much.
it. Next up.
No one else has signed up?
All right. Well, thank you for that. And moving on to our next,
Got to turn off the little red button.
oh, thank you. Next up, we have presentations, reports and updates, managers report. You look different.
I don't have anything, sir.
Get it? Little promo?
Hey. Do I have to fix? I was just playing that. Does she have a manager's report today?
I do not have anything. I don't know if y'all can hear me.
Yep. We can hear you, Christina. Thank you.
I'm keeping your seat warm.
All right, moving on. Planners report. All good? Okay. Next up, we have roads report. Nothing on roads? All right. All right, deputies report. Come on up.
First of all, I'll answer his question. We don't get a dime of the money, and neither does Marvin. It goes to the schools and it goes to the courts. That's basically where all the money goes for tickets. I don't really, the one thing I wanted to talk about was, I sent out another email today to all the HOA presidents. I don't know what else to do other than put the information out there. It doesn't seem like people are listening. If people want thieves to stop coming in their neighborhoods, they need to stop leaving stuff in their cars, they need to leave them locked, and they need to take their key fobs and put them in their pocket and stop leaving their keys in the car. We had 2 vehicles stolen out of Marvin over the last couple weeks. I spent a whole shift trying to find the BMW that got stolen, working with a guy in Concord. Well, I went through the flock camera system and found the car that came in, the stolen car, the car came in, and 9 minutes later it left right behind the stolen car. And I got contacted by the sergeant in Concord today, or actually on my day off yesterday, and he said that they're getting ready to arrest him because he's driving around another stolen car, and they haven't found the BMW yet. But that's kind of what I've been working on. I did send it out and I sent out a blast. I just stated the facts of what the people needed to do. These guys are coming into Marvin right now and Weddington and the surrounding area. They're repeat offenders. They're juveniles, which means they're not going to do anything to them. I know there's a secured custody order on one of the guys that stole the other car from Charlotte, which means he'll go to juvenile detention, but he probably will not stay there. I don't,
What
the new
neighbor-
laws with juveniles has really, kind of restrained us.
What neighborhoods were they? In the last 2 weeks, which neighborhoods?
What's that?
Which neighborhoods were they?
Let's see, one was Firethorn, and we had one stolen out of Providence Glen this morning. I sent out information today about what they needed to do, whether they'll follow it. I mean, the other thing too is if you can't do it for yourselves, they need to start doing it for their neighbors.
Can you give Austin whatever you send out to the HOAs and let us post it too on our website and on our,
Yeah, okay.
just
Right.
maybe, at least if the HOA presidents aren't sending it out, maybe somebody will see it and be like, oh, okay, I gotta start locking my
Yeah.
car, or whatever.
The problem is that what's gonna happen sooner or later is somebody's gonna be walking their dog in the middle of the night, coming home late, and they're gonna confront these guys, and somebody's gonna get hurt. If we went several months without anything happening in Marvin, and it's all because I put this information out there, but people get lackadaisical and say, well, they're not coming to our neighborhoods anymore. These guys have nothing to lose. All they're gonna do is come into neighborhoods, and they're gonna pull door handles until they find something. So,
Let's just,
I'm sorry, I'm a little frustrated is all.
Yeah, I hear in your voice. Let me, a quick question for you, though. Like, if a report comes in and it's stolen vehicle on your watch, does
Right.
that become your case and you have to come back and do investigative on Marvin's time?
Generally, what I
technically?
do, because our detective bureau is so inundated with caseload, is I work the case as far as I can take it. Now, the detectives, once I brought it to that, as far as I could, they're the ones that went up to Concord looking for the car. I didn't do that. But I take it as far as I can get. I went through the flock camera system. I entered it in NCIC, and I dealt with where the car came from. I called that department and talked to, that sergeant called me back, and that's how I got his information. But it took a while looking through the flock camera system, because I'm relatively new to it, but there was, that car we know for a fact is the one that took that BMW. It's just the timestamps on the flock cameras really pinpointed that vehicle, and it stopped at the end of their driveway.
and that was the one from Firethorn, that
Yes.
block camera?
Yep.
Okay, so again, if anybody's listening, if your neighborhood doesn't have it, it really does help, if something
Yeah,
does
those cameras are
happen.
great. If we can get a timestamp of when they came into your neighborhood
Yeah,
and when they left, especially when they're driving right behind the stolen car.
right. What type of, you said you were working with Concord, you said you were working with CMPD. Do you guys have a relationship with, what would this county be, right here, Lancaster?
Right next door?
Yeah, right
Yeah,
next door.
Lancaster.
Because apparently in Firethorn, on the South Carolina side, there was a break-in, and
Smashed window.
smashed window with a brick, and it was jewelry and high-end handbags that were taken.
Pretty close to the actual, well,
It was in South Carolina.
It was in South Carolina, but
So
They,
I don't-
they took,
Close to-
they did nothing but hit the master bedroom, right?
Yeah, I think so.
That's probably that South American gang that's working out of Charlotte.
That's what they were talking. So, but do you guys find out about that? Like, is there like a way that
We
you
found out
guys
about it
can?
only, I found out about it only because somebody had contacted me about hiring off-duty to work Firethorn. And so I gave her the off-duty, I did that this morning. But as far as,
I would also caution people who are going on vacation, which is the time of year to do that, to not be on Facebook announcing that
Announcing
you're
it
going on vacation,
or
or that
posting
you
your
are on
pictures.
vacation.
Right.
So it's just one of those
Well,
things,
and-
people look for that stuff.
And they think it was over the 4th where their fireworks are going off, and so you throw a brick through a window, nobody's gonna hear it.
well, I always tell people, even if you go to the grocery store,
Set your alarm.
set your alarm.
Yeah.
And even if and I always tell people to get safes now, because they know that if they kick that door in, they've got 5 or 6 minutes to get in and out, and they're hitting the master bedrooms. They'll pull the pillowcase off the bed, and they just dump the jewelry in it and run. We almost caught them in Weddington one night. We ran like scalded dogs from the 7-Eleven down there with a Weddington officer, and he was jumping the fence when we got there. And then we had to bring a dog to try to track them. And what they're doing is they park in usually they'll park in another neighborhood on another street. They'll hit this house, they'll hit a house, and then they all pile in the car and take off. But as far as these speeds go, on this map, the 122 mile an hour one, that's probably somebody on a crotch rocket or a sports car. And it was late at night, but some of these other ones, I know he was rattling off about the amount of people speeding. If I charge anybody for driving 10 miles per hour over the speed limit, I'm never going to get anything done. And they're not going to do anything with court. So generally, my rule is I'll stop them if they're driving like 45 to 47 and give them a warning, and then otherwise they get a citation if it's 50 and above. I don't know if that's something that you guys like, but literally, most of them are within tolerance as far as the way they're driving in Marvin.
I'm Just, the only things that I'm seeing, Ed, and this is just from my observations, is in the evenings, they're not hitting the sign, they're going the other direction. And they're coming out of the curve, and they're as hard as they can go towards the village. So, that's just what I've been observing. I know that the sign is paying attention to the speeds going the other way, but it's not picking them up going the opposite direction, and that's
Yeah,
what I'm seeing.
Right now, I have a vehicle issue because I got a spare car because apparently I have a fuel injector that's gone on my car. They won't let me drive it. As they said, it's not safe if I jump on it, so I'll have to do something internal to it. And Dodge, for some reason, doesn't have any, and they can't get them anywhere because they have not approved Napa or anybody else to sell those
When you
parts.
say you have a spare vehicle.
Have you seen it?
No.
My
it's
car's
just-
broke down sitting at the
It
garage.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Sometimes just a police vehicle sitting out in recognizable, where, it became a joke at one point because they would put it there, people would slow down and realize over time, nobody was in it. But just maybe one time there will be someone in it. But if they have an extra car that they're, for whatever reason, I know Andy would volunteer his space to park the car right out in front of his yard.
I can
But
ask.
I'm telling you,
I
that
can ask.
will get people's attention. And believe it or not, the speed limit that flashes up, in some areas, they have it come across blue and red, like it's a police officer that starts flashing if you're above that, and that gets people's attention to, hey, you're clearly going over the listed speed limit, and people tend to slow down with that.
Right.
But,
When you're sitting out there in front of my house, nobody speeds. They know the car's sitting there, it gets all over town, nobody speeds. It's at least a deterrent from
Right.
speeding. at
And I
least
have
while it's
parked
there.
out, I have parked out with this car, and people do slow down. I personally like to write tickets. I don't think giving people warnings is a deterrent. I think if they have to pay a little money, it'll get them to slow down eventually. Is there any questions about anything that's in the report that I can help anybody out with?
It seemed like, at least the numbers that were rolled off, there is a high percentage that they say are speeders, but when you hear the average speed didn't seem a whole lot off.
No.
Well,
Well, you're
to me.
dealing with 100,000 cars too,
Yeah.
so if 75% of the people are driving under the speed limit or at the speed limit, it's going to skew those numbers. But if you look at like Marvin School Road's not a good example because they generally follow on Marvin Road, incoming vehicles, 46 to 50 miles per hour, 33,000 people, 952 were driving between 46 and 50.
So under 5.
That's not
miles
even
an
a
hour.
traffic stop.
Yeah.
I mean,
And just for clarification, the 697 preventative patrol, that is you actively driving around the neighborhoods?
yes.
Okay. Just want to make that clear, because we only have one officer on at a time. We
Right,
can't
and
be
tra-
everywhere.
and traffic enforcement is important, but like, I'm not making excuses. I've got a spare car now, because I've had it for a few days, and I was on vacation this month. So the numbers are gonna go down on traffic stops. And when I'm out and about and writing tickets and stopping cars, sometimes you go fishing, you catch fish, and a lot of times you go out there and people just see you and they slow down. It's just the nature of the beast. Sometimes you'll write 10 tickets in a day, sometimes you only write 2.
Any other questions? I do have one, and we talked about this real briefly, but maybe you can send this message and we can get a message out to the HOAs. I heard from our HOA president just before I came here that there's repeatedly an individual going in our neighborhood soliciting. And you had said to me, I said, they wanted to get some additional, just someone to go find this guy and tell him he can't be there. We talked about it, but you said specifically having something.
I talked to our attorney about it, and just because you put no soliciting on your bricks coming into the place or your signage, we can't enforce that because it's something the HOA put up. But Marvin does have an ordinance, but I think there needs to be signage at each neighborhood that's in Marvin because it's so fragmented. Now, I did run off the guy you were talking about on the scooter day. He was in Oak Brook, I think. I ran him off today and said, you gotta check your subdivisions because Marvin has a no solicitation ordinance and you're violating it right now. So he said he'd leave the neighborhood and he did, but that doesn't mean he didn't go to another Marvin neighborhood.
So the only thing I would push back on a little bit, under every speed limit sign is not an ordinance saying this is the state law. Okay,
Right.
so how can we enforce that and not enforce, because just because the sign isn't up, if we have an ordinance, it's not on us, it's for that individual who's soliciting to go find out if there's an ordinance in Marvin. And if he's breaking that ordinance, I would think, talking to your attorneys, maybe we can talk to ours, but why can't we at least cite them for a warning, and if we catch them again, then we cite them and fine them?
Trying to think if there is a warning that we can give them. Maybe on
Or just
on
give them a
Marvin's-
ticket. I don't know, whatever it is.
Maybe
that-
on the ticket book we have from Marvin, we could do that, but I don't know of anything that we have that we could write. other
The
than-
ordinance,
Other than charging the ordinance.
God is speaking.
Yes.
the no solicitation ordinance should have the penalty listed within that ordinance.
Okay.
So we can pull the ordinance and it should say what the penalty is.
I mean, I get, believe it or not, I get a lot of calls like this to say, hey, like I can do something, you know, but just,
I think the last time I talked to our attorney about it, he said that you have to have that ordinance posted somewhere, because if you don't live in Marvin and you come to Marvin and you're selling knives door to door, you're a Cutco salesman.
right, but
Great knives, by the
it's
way.
on them.
In our neighborhood, for example, there's 5 lots that aren't in Marvin, you know, so I think that's where it kind of gets tricky too, you know?
So I will check with our attorney again, but I'm pretty sure the last time I talked to him about it, I think this is
So the
back when it first
recommendation-
passed.
Recommendation would be for the front of every neighborhood to post that.
Yeah, and like I told you earlier, Oak
Ordinance.
Brook's got signs out. I don't know where they are made. I don't think they paid a lot for them, but they look really nice. They kind of go with their neighborhood. I don't know if that's something that Marvin would be interested in doing.
But, so you've given this guy a warning.
Yes, I
Let's
told
pick
him-
on this guy for a second. You've given him a warning. You see him there again, or another officer sees him there again, what happens if he
And
solicits?
there lies in the problem. Everybody that works outside of Marvin, that's just a zone car, doesn't know about Marvin ordinances.
But
So-
say it's you.
If it's me, I could probably get away with citing him based on the fact that I've told him that he needs to check and find out where he's going.
Well-
Make sure it's not in Marvin.
The opinion of one, if it was, and we went so far as to create an ordinance to not allow it, then we would want some sort of, at the end of the day, some sort of,
So why don't we let Hunter and Chaplin
Yeah, and-
figure out like what our best options are? So if it's like Marvin-owned streets, then we can put up a sign, but like non-Marvin-owned neighborhoods, like streets, you probably
It's
can't
more
put a sign
difficult
up,
there.
right?
And I really do like the warning for the first time. And just because, you know, everybody's supposed to know the laws, but there's state laws, and this is unique
Yeah.
to Marvin, and not all municipalities have those. Most of the county doesn't have it, so it's a little different, and it would be good to put the person on notice, and it'd be better if we had documentation such as a warning. And after that, our ordinance does have penalties and fines that can be implemented.
my
and
favorite
enforced.
is the roofers, and once there's one roof that's getting replaced, then their representative goes down and just starts knocking on doors and saying, hey, your neighbor has it, you must have it, so.
So let's let staff work on
Okay.
an option and bring it back to
I'll
us at
check
the
with
work
our
session.
attorney in the meantime and just double check that. I know one of his concerns at the time, and this is back, I think, when Bill McGuirt was with us, is that you got one subdivision that's in Marvin, and then you go 100 yards down the road, and you got another subdivision
But
that's
even
not.
like John said, he's got 5 houses in his neighborhood that aren't in Marvin,
Right.
5 lots, so, you know, I don't know how you do that.
You know, Weddington Chase is the same way.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I've called on 3 people since I've lived in Marvin. And the sheriff's deputies have responded, and they have escorted them off the properties. And I don't tell them, because if I stand there and make sure they leave, I got a small neighborhood, but you know, if you're soliciting within my neighborhood, you're not gonna stay there.
I'll send out an email out to the patrol lieutenants and sergeants and let them know that there is an ordinance, that they need to run them off at least, at a minimum.
I think you understand that when somebody parks in my neighborhood, even the police officers, I will come up and ask you what you're doing.
And be careful with that, because I don't want to see you getting hurt, Wayne.
All right.
Okay, we good?
Thank you, Ed.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Said, be safe.
Thank you, Ed.
Next up, we have Planning Board report.
The planning board met June 18th, and there were two agenda items. One was a review of the Heritage at Marvin monument sign. And we were looking at different ideas, and the one that's kind of being submitted, I guess. And the next one is that what we're going to be dealing with today, which is the zoning map amendment for the rezoning of the single-family residence from SFR 3 to 1, and that was voted down 1 to 5. That's it.
Next up, we have PRNG Board reports.
So we had our most recent PRG meeting this morning. Updates on a couple of things. We did have a discussion of the STRAP grant funds. So we're looking forward to that. We only got a portion of what we asked for. That'll be mainly Marvin Branch that we have to allocate the funds to. But we're hopeful that as we kind of go through that process, permits, engineering, all of those things, and how we do it, we'll pick up some experience and best practices for maybe handling some of the other places, either through volunteers, things of that nature in the future. We talked about light pollution. This had been on for a little while. Christina Culp did a lot of research on it. Nobody's looking to be the light police or anything. It's more a role that they want to serve as educational to the community in the ways that light pollution can affect some of the wildlife, but also, even your garden can be affected. So it's mostly going to be an education type of campaign. There's some organizations that they can get free literature from that we're going to post on the website, and also at the park we'll have a little place for pamphlets for it. We did have Hunter come in, and there was some discussions about folks wanting to know more about the tree ordinance and how that's been affected by the new MDO. So Hunter gave a presentation on kind of how the Marvin tree ordinance that's been in place since 2004 is being changed to some degree to make it more kind of in line with all of our other ordinances and so forth. And then we talked about trail maintenance, and if anybody sees any issues out on the trails, whether it's flooding, a downed tree, branches, things of that nature. We had a conversation with Davey about how people can handle that, and there's 3 different ways that folks can report an issue. On our Village of Marvin website, on the front page, up near the top, it says Submit a Request, and if you click on that button, it'll actually open up an electronic form that you can submit. Hey, I saw, a tree falling across, this particular trail or something like that. You can also phone here to the Village of Marvin, and you can lodge an issue that way. Or Davey typically has office hours from 10 till 2. You can always come in, drop by, and speak about any issues that you have out on the greenways or trails.
Okay.
That's pretty much it.
Any other questions? Real quick, before we go on to event planning, and it may be you, but just a quick question, so I don't want to miss this. My understanding is there were fireworks at Firethorn, and I don't remember approving. Is that something that's... You don't have to anymore? Okay. Just wanted to make sure. We were talking about it, and just, I hadn't seen anything that we approved. If we don't have to approve it, that's fine.
Just for clarification on that, there's still requirements and they still have to get a permit. The permit, though, is just issued administratively and there's requirements in the new MDO that outline kind of for that, an event of that size, but it doesn't come to council, it doesn't have a public hearing or anything.
Perfect. One last thing for us. Thank you.
All right, hold on, before we move on from PRNG, you might not know this, but we did have a resignation from the PRNG board, Bob Nunnenkamp, effective today. So I just want to thank him for his service to the village and really appreciate him and his insight over the years on the Parks Rec and Greenway Board. So thank you to Bob, and maybe we can put together like a little something for him.
We can work on a
We can thank him, yeah.
Yeah, he's been a true asset, not just with the PRG, but also he's done a lot of work with Marsh and
Yeah.
cleanups and all sorts of things, so, yeah.
Sad to see
his-
him
Yeah.
resign from
Service
the
is
board,
very-
but
really.
really appreciate him and his time, so just wanted to thank him.
Thanks, Kim. Okay, moving on. Event planning report. Tyler.
Alrighty. Stargazing event, supposed to be this Friday or Saturday. Weather doesn't look fantastic right now, so we'll see as it gets closer. That's going well. We got about 15 people registered, which would be a good turnout. So we'll see how the weather turns out. National Night Out, August 6th, Tuesday. We've come into a couple volunteers to come help out. I've put it all in y'all's calendar if y'all are interested in coming out. I think it'll be a fun little family event. We'll have all the local law enforcement sliding around, so it'll be cool for the families. Through the rest of July, we mentioned it at the last meeting, we have our park passports going around. We've partnered up with several parks in Union County. You can find ours on the backside under the cover of the barn at Eford Park. Get one of those, follow the list, go all the way around. Each park has a specific hole punch. So that's a pretty cool thing. And moving on to Marvin Day. So we had our Marvin Day subcommittee meeting this morning. A recommendation that's being made from the committee is us recommending to move away from fireworks at this upcoming Marvin Day. Just putting that out there to you guys to kind of discuss. The committee kind of is of the opinion that the cost, the park space, and the amount of people watching them just make it not entirely worth doing. So I was recommended to bring that up here to you guys to let y'all discuss.
I wasn't there today, so I wasn't part of this discussion. Tyler's like, oh, I don't want to have this discussion. I mean, they're not wrong. I mean, it takes up a lot of space at the park. They're very expensive, and not that many people stay to watch them. So the people who want to watch them just sit at home and watch them, or complain about it online, one of the two. So, I mean, they are really nice, but I don't know if the cost, the really nice outweighs the cost of them. I'm okay ditching them.
I'll also add, as a subcommittee member, to sort of piggyback on the light pollution and the wildlife, the subcommittee did have a concern that wildlife is affected by potentially the fallout of the fireworks and the noise and all that stuff. So that was another sort of reason we're recommending not do it in such a residentially dense area with so much wildlife as well.
Any comments from council?
Here we go.
So we cut out the band? Maybe cut out the band and we cut out any of the other stuff too?
Yeah.
Right now, we're just recommending fireworks. Everything else we want to keep.
All right. Glad this is a community.
And where were the complaints from? Just miscellaneous?
Yeah, I'm sure there was some scattered around.
A lot?
Not to my knowledge, not a ton.
What's-
Not a ton to me directly that I've found.
Because you're always going to have someone complain,
Right.
maybe
Right.
If-
5
if
or
I
6
did receive
even.
some
Right. So
emails.
if some is 3, if some is 100, big difference. I just think we careful because it always seems as though we have a way of, the squeaky wheel gets the oil, and if someone complains about any little thing that we jump through hoops to get taken care of. And it could be, we have 7,000, we have 3 people complain. Let's do the percentages. Again, I can go either way with this, but every time we turn around, we have someone or a handful that impact the rest of the community. So again, I'm going to go, listen, if we cut out the fireworks, let's cut out the band. Let's have face painting and a dunking booth, and have the guy show up with the snakes, and we can probably get through Marvin Day in about 30 minutes, 45 minutes.
Yeah, I guess one question I have is, if you're still going to have the band playing until 9 or something at night, I mean, how many people are there for the fireworks that then aren't there for the band too? So I don't know if it makes sense then to continue, you know, do we roll it back and go till 7 p.m. or something if we're not going to really have a band and fireworks? You know, I guess, because to me, those kind of go hand in hand.
They do. My only point I'm making, John, is the fact that sometimes we go way over
Sure.
here without thinking about, you know, it's concerning, the fact that we go way over here for something and without regard for the rest of the community.
Yeah.
So, and I only brought up the band because you're talking about noise pollution, whatever. We just, you know, the next time we meet, I would say, just rethink everything. Time, and are we going to just let 3 people who didn't like the fireworks shut down fireworks for the people that are there? I think there are many adjustments that we can make, and the first 3 years, I think we've done really well. When you look at a lot of festivals and you look at a lot of events that are, you know, and I think back how many years ago when there was Strawberry Festival, and it was small, but they kept going, they kept making changes, they kept doing, and they kept adding, and they kept taking away, but it grew, and it grew to something big. And I hate to see something be eventually ditched because you've got a handful of people. That's my only concern. And I would just say, back to the Marvin Day group, just to think a little deeper with what they're planning.
It's not the Marvin Day group, it's us. Like, we're the ones that need to make the decision. This was their recommendation in order, since council, and I mean, you know, nobody wants to go and ask for sponsorships. So because sponsorships were very late this year, and not a lot of people did a lot of legwork to get sponsorships, the fireworks are very expensive. And the village is gonna end up having to foot that bill, because we didn't get as many sponsorships as we have in the past. So that is merely their recommendation. We can take it, we can leave it, we don't need to make a decision right now. This was just a recommendation that they wanted to give to us so that we can mull over, talk about, and I don't think we needed to make a decision tonight. I think we can think about it and talk about it and figure it out.
I think if I was deciding right now, I would say, if it's starting to come out of, if it at any time gets to the point where we're having to pay from the village, having to pay for it. The whole idea is to have sponsors behind it so we can support the sponsors and this not be a tax-paying, you know, or tax-paying dollars are going towards a big event like this. That's just me.
Mayor, I just need to interrupt because you guys adopted a budget where you are using your general fund tax dollars to.
And how much?
We budgeted 30,000, so we did budget enough to cover the fireworks.
Okay.
But we also are, because we're not doing sponsorships this year, the committee is looking to be more fiscally responsible. And I also want to just clarify, not one time today in that subcommittee meeting did complaints from residents or non-residents join that discussion. That was not at all a reason. the number one reason was cost. And we also talked about reducing the cost of the band a little bit. So we're talking about where can we be a little bit more fiscally responsible and still put on a really great event, since
Right.
we are moving away from sponsors. But we did budget for it, so to Mayor Pro Tem's point, you all have time to think about this. It's just a recommendation. If you come back to us as a group and decide you want them, we did budget for them, we can do it. We're just recommending not this 1 year, only for 25. We didn't make the decision forever, it was just for 25.
Okay. Yeah, I thought the first year we did it was all on. It was all on sponsorships,
first
and maybe
two-
we haven't had the
The
support
first 3 years.
sponsorship ones. Yeah,
All of
yeah.
them have been.
Okay, then my bad, my
But-
mistake, I misspoke.
But because we, as council, don't want to get out and try to get sponsors, it's like, and that's fine, but it's really hard, like, to then pay for it. So if we want it and we want to have fireworks, and then we need to go out and get more sponsors, really.
Well, and then we'd leave that on the tail end, then if we have the money for it through the sponsors, then we can include
And
it. maybe.
thanks for the clarification on that, because I thought it was just, you had a couple people that were complaining, and I just want to be, thanks for the
It was
clarification on
Jill
that.
and
again,
Tyler and Austin. No, I'm just kidding.
And if I could
and
understand.
again, I'm all for
What was
being,
the
you know,
conversation around moving away from sponsors?
Well, that conversation happened during budget season, and as we wrapped up last year's Marvin Day. For the last few years, it's been probably collectively the same 5 or 6 people that are primarily raising the bulk of the money. It takes a lot of my time, Kim's time, Tyler's time, Hunter's time, that we should be devoting to our duties, but yet we're out there trying to, follow up with all these sponsors and get the cash in the door. And it just became something that a small number were carrying the biggest load. And it was sort of like multiple times we discussed that if it continued to sort of be that way, the committee would vote to stop doing sponsorships because it's just too much on staff and some council to do.
Me.
Yeah, so we ended up voting to take it out and recommended that. And so because of that, we did not budget to receive sponsorship money this year.
That doesn't mean that we can't.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that if everybody wants to step up to the plate, but I quite honestly am tired of being like the main person on council to get, I'm sorry, but I get tired of going to my friends and be like, please give me some more money for this event that you guys really don't care about, but you're doing it because I keep asking you, so.
Being new, I was just, I guess I was on.
It's your fault, John. It's all you.
I guess I was just under the assumption that we always budgeted that money. And
We've
then,
never paid.
And then we would use sponsorships to offset it.
So we
So
did
when I saw
always
that in the
budget. You're not wrong. We did always budget a certain amount to be expended on Marvin Day, but we would also budget on the revenue side a good amount of sponsorship money to cover in full what we anticipated spending. This year, under sponsorships, you're not going to see a number that covers Marvin Day because we're not anticipating doing that this year. So you're not wrong. In past years, we have budgeted to receive a certain amount of dollars in revenue from sponsors that matched the expense line of what we anticipated to spend.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? One more question. I get the shake. With celebration of 30 years, have we gone any further with that? Like,
We discussed it this morning in the subcommittee meeting as well, about tying that in. I know we had also talked about like a standalone event, doing something this fall, and we somehow used we used the subcommittee meeting a little bit this morning to mull that over too, but I believe the recommendation right now from the subcommittee meeting is to add in a little something smaller that will show the 30th anniversary, but
Maybe a photo op, for example.
yeah, like a light up 3-0 or something like that. But I know like the
At
last
Marvin
meeting,
Day. At Marvin Day.
yeah.
Okay.
We also discussed that with the money that we would save if you accepted our recommendation to not have fireworks, that could be rerouted to maybe some fun food truck Friday night this fall where we celebrate the 30th anniversary and route that money to pay for food and a DJ and cookies and whatever. We're just mulling over some ideas with Tyler. If we have that money.
Fall, but no time frame yet. Is-
We got a whole year. We just hit the first, and we got the whole year
All
to
right,
get around it.
Just asking. Okay, thank you. Full questions. Thank you. Next up, coffee with council. We scheduling new?
That'll be down below. You haven't had a coffee of council since the last one yet.
Oh, it's a debrief, I'm sorry. Debrief?
Nope, he just said we haven't had one.
Oh, sorry, I thought we were. WUMA report.
Well, so, we did have one public comment. Ms. Jill Janes, asked about, if we had made any progress on the, grant for traffic enforcement measures. So Jeff informed her that WUMA didn't pursue this jointly, which we did not. It was brought up at WUMA, but nobody really followed up with it. And they found basically in Weddington that they were probably going to do better with just more officers. So they, with this budget, because they have turned their fire services back over to the county, they are actually adding 2 more deputies to their force, bringing them to 5 deputies. So they will have 24/7 coverage in Weddington. They do have a pretty major speeding problem on Providence Road, as we all know, that travel through there. So they're trying to get that under control. Basically, everybody talked about their budget. You know, everybody had completed the budget since the last meeting, so Susanna Wedra is now Waxaw's new
Liaison.
to a member of WUMA. We welcomed her this past meeting, and I guess they have a new establishment, the Jekyll and Hyde Tap House is coming to Waxaw. They're still working on the Parkway West. Hopefully that'll get done. Help ease some traffic through Waxaw. Everybody that travels through there knows the pain of getting through downtown. Let's see, Weddington updated their land use plan. Let's see, Amanda was not present this time, so Mr. Boyce came. They're waiting on FEMA approval for repairs on the dam at Dogwood Park, still working on the dam. Let's see, and there was no old business. We did discuss future meetings, looking at what we can discuss over the next meetings. We're looking to have the county manager back for an update on county projects. And Jeff also asked us if we wanted to invite the Union County State Delegation to an upcoming meeting. The General Assembly has approved Summerfield de-annexation. In case anybody didn't catch that, we got the news during the meeting.
Did that went through?
And that's pretty much it. We welcomed Susanna, and that was pretty much the comments from the board.
No discussion of them of sharing a 30 acres or anything? We put a stake in that? Okay.
We didn't discuss that.
Okay, good. All right. Any other questions? Moving on, we have the consent agenda. I'll need a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
As amended?
As amended, my apologies.
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up, public hearings. Public hearing for zoning map amendment 2024-1.
You want a motion to open it?
We need a motion to open that.
Oh. That's what
Oh, I didn't think we needed one. That's fine. Okay.
Okay, so public hearing is open.
Okay.
So the village has received a request for a zoning map amendment to rezone the property located at 1802 Summit View Place from SFR3 to SFR1. In short, the request is being made by the property owner, Mr. Bill Laughlin, who is here in attendance. The request is basically, once again, just to rezone the property. If you guys recall, during the adoption of the MDO, all of Weddington Chase was zoned SFR3. The property owner requested that his property be rezoned to SFR1, and we've also had communication that even to SFR2, which I'll speak on that here shortly. But in general, the lot, for the most part, does comply with all of SFR1. The only thing that it does not comply with would be the minimum lot width at the measure at the front setback for SFR1. Overall, the request is inconsistent with the surrounding land use or the surrounding zoning, since all properties in Weddington Chase are zoned SFR3. And I have spoke with the applicant, and one thing that we're looking to, that staff's researching further, is looking to zone all of Phase 1 of Weddington Chase SFR2. This would be a zoning map amendment that the staff would initiate. Basically, the only reason why Weddington Chase was not zoned SFR2 in the first place was due to the platted side setbacks. If you guys recall, the platted side setbacks for SFR2 is 9 feet on the side, or sorry, yes, for SFR2 is 9 feet. In Weddington Chase, the platted minimum setback was 5 feet. So to avoid creating any nonconformities, that's why they were zoned SFR3. The applicant has been working on getting me surveys of those properties, so as long as that the properties do not have any nonconformities, staff has no issue with rezoning Weddington Chase to SFR2. Then it would be consistent with the land use and zoning.
That portion. of
Correct, Phase
Weddington
1,
Chase.
yep. So, but this is a request that has been made just to rezone this specific property from SFR1 to SFR3. Is there any questions specifically? I know that you guys are kind of familiar
So
with
this is the only property that's come to us to.
Correct, at this
change.
time. The request is per the application to rezone his property to from SFR3 to SFR1. We've discussed rezoning his property to SFR2. That was not the initial request, but like I said, the thing that staff's working on with the applicant is looking to do a greater rezoning, so you don't have one property, just SFR2 or SFR1 in the neighborhood. Bill, would you like to add anything? Do you want to come up and add anything, or?
I just want to be clear.
If you don't mind coming up, Bill.
Yeah.
When we had our neighborhood meeting, I asked if we could amend it to SFR2, so I don't know if, is that being included in this conversation?
I mentioned it to him, but like I said, the initial request was SFR1, but they can zone your property to SFR2.
Right, okay.
It's a rezoning request regardless.
So if it, in my belief, I've given them all my analysis and stuff, but it squarely falls into SFR2, my lot by itself, and the whole front half really does too, the 130 lots in the front half. So he is, seems to be very open-minded about considering that, and hopefully we can work through that. But I still think I would like to pursue my lot going to SFR2. Even though my application says 1, I would like to amend that to SFR2.
So when planning board made a recommendation, they didn't recommend it because at that time it was SFR1, which would put it potentially in non-conforming uses if they came to do something else. What are some of the non-conforming uses that would be triggered?
It would not create any non-conforming uses. The SFR districts, the only permitted use is single-family residential. So there's no change in allowable uses. It doesn't, SFR3 doesn't allow for multifamily or any of that. It's all, SFR is strictly single-family. The only big difference is the minimum lot sizes, setbacks, and so on. It would, so then you have the other two nonconformities of nonconforming structure and nonconforming lot.
Wait, repeat that? You
The
said
other
that really
two,
quick.
the other two nonconformities, per definition, is a nonconforming structure and a nonconforming lot
Okay.
of record. Nonconforming lot of record basically means that the minimum lot size is below the, is less than what the minimum, like if a lot's 10,000 square foot but in the zoning district, the minimum lot size is 15,000 square foot, then that becomes a non-conforming lot of record. That can be dealt with, not the biggest issue. The biggest thing we want to avoid is non-conforming structures, meaning that if your structure sits, for example, in like the SFR2, the side setback is 9 feet. So if all the neighborhood was zoned SFR2, there are a few instances where the existing structure sits less than 9 feet off the side property line, meaning that that becomes a non-conforming structure. Non-conforming structures can be an issue when it comes to mortgage, title stuff, as well as if that structure was ever to be damaged, destroyed, whatever natural, occurrence, they would then have to build back to be conforming. So that's why the neighborhood was selected to be SFR3, because we didn't have all we knew is what the platted setbacks were. We didn't have every single lot by lot information on exactly where those structures sat on the lot. But his specific request does not, even from SFR1 or to SFR2, does not create any non-conforming structures. The only non-conformity is a non-conforming minimum lot width, so it would create a minimum or a non-conforming lot of record per se. Is there anything? I hope
I agree. That's different than the non-conforming use. You have the non-conforming, the use is all going to be residential, so that would be conforming, but the lot would be. The only other issue is you would have the entire neighborhood with the different zoning, and this is a different zoning designation.
Well, but
And
now does it comply with SFR2 with the lot width?
it does.
It
Yes.
does. Okay, so he's amended from SFR1 to SFR2, so now we're talking about a different animal. So his lot completely complies with SFR2 zoning. It wouldn't necessarily with 1, but 2 it does. And you are potentially looking at that entire phase to rezone to SFR2 because it all matches that, correct?
Correct. Once staff confirms all this, and so I know this is kind of confusing about it, I wanted to make sure you guys have all the information before you guys go to a vote, is that when planning board reviewed the request, they did vote to not recommend the rezoning, regardless of SFR1 or 2, and it mainly came down to because it would then be inconsistent with surrounding zoning. Once again, you would have one property zoned this compared to the surrounding neighborhood, or the rest of the neighborhood or surrounding properties zoned a different district. Still can be done, but that was the reason why they voted not to recommend it. That's why staff's potentially looking at the whole phase 1 of Weddington Chase and zoning it SFR2, which then in theory, this specific rezoning would be consistent. So it's like, council can vote to approve it, because staff is working to do a greater map amendment just for that neighborhood, just for consistency purposes. But either way, that's gonna be something that's probably gonna be coming down the line in the next couple of months.
Well, I guess one of the things that I would think about, and if this is conforming with SFR2 and there is the potential to do this larger piece, what my concern is even just the number of meetings we've had, planning board, things like that. If we did approve it this way, then you've got 129 other property owners that could be starting their own application process. Right?
Correct, and that's what.
And that would create a burden on the village.
The other thing you don't know is this applicant does want to really downzone his property, but some of the other people may not. So you don't know, even though staff may be bringing something before you, you just don't know until it goes through the process.
So in your recommendation, would you suggest that if we are going to look at SFR2, let's look at it as a whole?
I think that's cleaner to look at it as a whole and not create one lot with separate zoning than the entire neighborhood, because you don't know what you're going to do with those.
Is that also considered spot zoning? Because what is spot zoning?
Spot zoning is where you take zoning in one area and make it different from the surrounding areas, usually to the benefit of the owner is usually how it is, and the detriment.
Would be like taking.
But it's usually the other way, where people.
It's usually more intense. Yes. It's usually where you take you would zone this one lot commercial and allow multiple uses. And spot zoning, It is not illegal per se, you just have to justify the reasoning for it. But it almost shifts the burden, because usually you have all these wonderful presumptions in favor of your zoning decisions, but if you go to spot zoning and you're doing something entirely different, you need to justify why you're doing something entirely different.
And spot zoning, as I understand it, like before the Heritage District was approved, was maybe taking one of these property owners and allowing them to put a restaurant in it without, that's specific for that area and stuff, so.
And there was they did conduct a neighborhood meeting?
Yes, so the applicant held his neighborhood meeting to comply with the ordinance. It was held on June 25th, I think, that Tuesday of that week, whatever that was. The applicant had roughly, I think it was 6 people attend. There were none of the people that attended had no objection to the specific rezoning. Mainly some of the questions that did come out of it, to your point, were, should we do this, or what is the difference and all that? And so that's when staff was saying, look, if it's to your point, if more property owners if this is gonna trigger a chain reaction, let's try to look at it from a greater whole. And I mentioned this during the neighborhood meeting and during the planning board meeting. Weddington Chase was zoned. The original, during the MDO draft, the original zoning map had them zoned SFR2. Because 99% of those lots out there comply with SFR2. It was just called where, hey, SFR2 side setbacks this. I knew of examples that it was close, or definitely potentially less than 9 feet on the side, and that's when we, instead of, like I said, having time to look at case by case to get the MDO adopted, we basically then classified all of Weddington Chase as SFR3, because it's what was most consistent with what their plat, their existing plat for the subdivision stated. So, but yeah.
So you're considering that Phase 1 versus Phase 2 being 2 separate distinct things?
Correct.
You're not really spot zoning in that case. It gets away from that issue.
Correct. The Phase 1 is, I think, the first 160 some lots. I mean, there's a clean break, and you can kind of tell looking at the neighborhood and looking at the plats. The only difference between Phase 1 and Phase 2 is that I want to say Phase 2, because it was approved later, obviously, it did have on the plat different minimum setbacks compared to Phase 1. But ultimately, looking at it, the applicant's actually done a lot of background research and he's gotten some surveys from existing properties. It's still, even on Phase 2, there's a handful that if we rezoned all of them, we would need to verify, like all Phase 1 and Phase 2 to SFR2. We would just want to verify on a few and potentially discuss with those property owners. But ultimately, all the lots but 2 in Phase 1 comply. And those 2 lots, technically it's Article 14, which is flexible development standards, which allows basically staff to grant a variance up to 2.5 feet / 10%. For a side setback, it wouldn't really maybe create a non-conforming. I would have to check with you on that language, but there's only 2 lots really in question right now for Phase 1 for sure.
There's also a handful, if I'm not mistaken, of lots that are unincorporated. Does that have any effect on any of this?
Nope. I think there's 4 lots left in Weddington Chase that are not annexed in. They are zoned through the county. And if those properties would be annexed in, then we would then zone them either SFR 3 or 2, depending on, what we decide to do in the future. I think so too. The ones left are in later phases of Weddington Chase as well.
If you were us, sitting in our chair, what would you be asking you?
What do you mean?
About what you're, because I don't know everything about zoning and all this, so what would be your concerns?
So to Chaplain's kind of point, rezoning this specific property at this time, it's not recommended by staff, not recommended by planning board. Doesn't say that doesn't mean you guys can't do it. There is a greater thing that we're looking into, and that staff will be, like I said, bringing probably to planning board in August. It's cleaner to do it that way. One, you're only amending the map once for multiple properties compared to amending it either twice in this instance if we still do that, or amending it multiple times if residents keep applying for rezoning. So,
And I'm going to interrupt really quick, because that is the concerns that I've been hearing, is that it's going to be like one after another, after another, after another. So I would much rather it be cleaner for staff to do this if we're going to do it, and it makes the most sense to do it. Let's do it at one fell swoop.
Yep.
I don't like the idea of having an inconsistency, because if at some point we're like, nah, never mind, we're not going to do it, then we have an inconsistency. That's the entire reason that not the entire reason, that was a major reason that we redid the MDO. So for me, the concerns that I've heard are what you said, like if it's, 100 and whatever houses, then if one starts, then it's gonna be the next one and then the next one, and it's gonna be a burden on staff. So for me, I would like to wait and see if the whole phase 1 rezoning makes sense, to do that. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with what Kimberly's saying there. I think it's important that we're not carving out individual things, as much as possible. And I think it's healthier going to the SFR2, because it is conforming at that point. I really, one more question about that. So, one thing that a lot of homeowners might do is at some day maybe put in a pool, right? I know when I did that, it can trigger other things that have to do with your zoning. But if you were to be non-conforming at that point, are there special things that then have to happen if you do something like putting in a pool?
so from a non-conforming lot, no, as long as whatever structure is being proposed in the lot, as long as it complies with the current regulations in place. Same goes for an addition to the principal structure. As long as that addition does not enhance the nonconformity, or create a nonconformity. I mean, basically, if it's creating a nonconformity, it wouldn't be approved. But, for example, if your side setback was 9 feet, you had you were 7 feet off the property line, and you wanted to do a 2-foot addition, you wouldn't be able to do it. But if you were doing something on the rear where it does not impact the rear or that side setback, even though the structure is non-conforming, you could still expand, I think, up to 50%, as long as, like I said, it does not expand the nonconformity.
Yeah, so my feelings, definitely, I think SFR2 is more what we would look to do here, whether it be, when you then look at it as just this single property or the larger group that is justified by the 2 different phases, I'd lean towards probably doing it with the larger group, just to keep things cleaner.
So the applicants provided a lot of information for staff to go ahead and bring this request to the planning board to do all of at least phase 1. That's just information that I didn't have, because partly this neighborhood was annexed in, so I don't have all the original final as-built surveys and other stuff like I would for existing neighborhoods to confirm some of this stuff. But he has done a lot of legwork to get me a lot of this information, so it's just kind of verifying and double-checking any other questionable properties. But that's something that staff can definitely do between now and the August planning board, and then potentially be brought in front of you guys in September for a whole phase 1 rezoning.
And would we be then pausing this process for this one individual decision until we get that information about the larger group? Or do we have
You
to say
could, but-
yay or nay on this one and then move forward with the other?
You could continue it to state a time, date, and place, or table it, but I think it's cleaner to go ahead and, you've got an application before you. And yeah. And you also might want to make sure that everyone has had an opportunity to speak. I doubt there are other people for the public hearing before you take any action. And Austin would have if anybody else has signed up.
No one signed up. No one signed up, right? Okay. Has anyone signed up to?
He's saying, ask if there's anybody else,
Oh.
not Austin. Not Austin, ask if there's anybody else that wants to speak.
Well, including the applicant.
I think he did.
Yeah. Oh, if you. All right, so no one else is.
Does anybody else have any questions for Hunter? Nope.
No
Okay.
questions?
All right, so I'm going to make a motion to adopt an ordinance amending the official zoning map to rezone the subject property located at 1802 Summit View Place, Marvin, North Carolina, 28173, parcel number 06156-140, from single-family residential SFR3 to single-family residential SFR1, and find that the proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the Village of Marvin 2020 Land Use Plan and other officially adopted village plans and is reasonable and in the public interest.
Further discussion?
One question I have, though, she said to SFR1. Did we clarify that it would be SFR2? Or?
She made the motion, and I think she, based upon her discussion, I think she made the motion, but she might, you don't have to vote in favor of a motion. I think she's getting it on the table. I may be wrong, but you made it in favor. Yeah.
Well, that's what it says. Was it,
they-
oh,
they
okay,
amended it.
I'm sorry, I'll amend that to SFR2, sorry.
Okay.
Is that acceptable? That change?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so
sorry.
just
And
to
then
be
y'all just
clear,
have to vote to see if you have an
Yes.
affirmative to rezone it or not.
is my understanding is the applicant was willing to change
I
it
got
to
it.
SFR2.
My apologies,
Okay.
from SFR3 to SFR2.
Yes. All right, further discussion? All's in favor? Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, looks like unanimous unopposed. So that will move to August when we look at the whole neighborhood together.
Correct. So in short,
We
staff-
won't look at it till September, correct?
Correct, because planning board's next week. I may put this on their agenda to at least begin discussion, just because, but I based off, I just got this information from the applicant last night on the properties. But I can go ahead and potentially put it on planning board next week to just go ahead and begin the discussion. Once we finalize all the information, they'll make their recommendation. September is most likely. It could, in theory, get done by August, just depending on how much legwork that staff can review between now and next week for planning board to make sure all the information's accurate and that we feel comfortable asking for planning board for a recommendation. So I'd say September, but it could be August. August council.
Okay, and just out of curiosity, no fees or anything like that are involved in this? Because
No.
I know this was tagged on to other things that we were doing this without a fee, but if
For this specific applicant, no, the council waived the fee. The only fee that he associated with was a neighborhood meeting. So, yeah, the mailing for the neighborhood. For the greater one, for the larger, it'd be the same thing. It's a staff-initiated one. We'd still have to hold a neighborhood meeting, but that's something that I can probably coordinate with the residents and the HOA, because it would just be the neighborhood, basically. So,
Okay,
should be good.
thank you. All right, next up, we have discussion of coffee with council. And it looks like you're looking for some dates.
Yes, July through September, and I apologize, I meant to put this on the last meeting. First up, Thursday, July 11th, that is in 2 days. Who would like to sign up?
What time is that?
It's 10 a.m.
I can do that one.
Joe and Wayne.
Wayne, you're joining me. All right.
All right, next up is Tuesday, July 23rd, 6 p.m.
I can do that.
Bob?
I can do that one.
Oh,
I'll do it.
Andy? Okay.
I'll do it. It's easier for evening ones for me than the daytime ones.
Thursday, August 1st, 10 a.m. Jamie?
August 1st,
Thursday, August 1st, 10 a.m.
I'll do that, so I got the 11th, and my,
Okay. Joe and Jamie?
Schedule your Pennsylvania.
Tuesday, August 27th, 6 p.m. John?
which one is this?
We're on Tuesday, August 27th, 6 p.m., and you will get calendar invites from me
Yeah.
this week. Wayne, okay? Okay. Thursday, September 5th, 10 a.m. Don't make me start picking people.
I cannot do that one. It's one day I cannot be here.
John?
we can put a staff member in there.
That
Is
would
he-
be, it's not staff with council.
I-
So
I
there's
know.
skip it, come back, we'll come back to
We
it.
we can skip that, it's just a date that,
Skip it.
Tuesday, September 24th, 6 PM.
I could do that.
I see Bob and I see Jamie.
I was this close to.
Unless you want it, John. You raised your hand. You want to do it?
Yeah, I can do that.
All right, let
Okay.
Jamie and John do it.
When is that again?
That is
September 24th.
September 24th, 6 PM. John gets the star. He signed up with most.
I never got a star, I've signed up for most ones.
Okay, so
Sensitive.
the only spot I have is September 5th. Do you guys want to figure that out now? Wayne, you'll do it? Okay. Okay.
So we're good?
I'm good. I've got everything I need. You'll get calendar invites from me later this week, and
Thank
then I'll
you.
come back to you all in September for the remainder of the year.
Perfect.
Remind them about 26th of November.
Yeah, November 26th is Kids with Council, so the expectation is that you're all here for that.
When is
Uh,
that again?
No, Tuesday, November 26th. So it's the one we do right around Thanksgiving. It's the kids one.
Thanksgiving week, right?
So we'll have refreshments for the kids, and
Not always.
they'll be here asking questions, learning about government, learning about Marvin, so. Any questions?
Okay. Thank you, moving on. New business. Nothing? Open topics. What do you got, Kim?
Nothing. Wayne's got something.
I got some
Ah, Wayne,
little speech here.
a speech?
He does.
Yes.
Got it written down and
Oh,
everything.
my goodness. All right,
It's only about 15
everybody,
minutes long.
sit back and take a sip of something.
Oh, hey, Bill.
See if
We have
you're-
all heard about the landowners having rights, and I would like to give them options. The Catawba Land Conservancy purchased land with the hopes of conserving and preserving open space. This also saves the tree canopy. This is done through grants and giving to the landowners the option of selling to the conservatory or to a developer. I think some landowners would like to have a choice. I'm proposing that Marvin reconnects with the Catawba Land Conservatives and would encourage the landowners to sell to the conservative. We was, back in early 2006, 6, 8, and 9, or 3 days, we was a corporate partner with them. And for some reason, I have no idea that we no longer have that opportunity with them.
No relationship with them at all?
None that I'm aware of.
And how did you learn of this? You just were aware of it from before?
No. Weddington is going through some difficult times now with their zoning, their tree canopy and clear cutting and all their building they going on. It's something that we need to do to try to, there's other people trying to do it, but maybe this is something we can do. And I have not reached out to Catawba, but I want to.
Now, why does a landowner, just asking because I don't know, why does a landowner, do you think right now doesn't have a choice to do that? Just to reach out to them and say,
They just might not know about it.
They don't
that-
know about
That it's
it.
an option.
okay, so it's more of an awareness thing
Yeah.
you'd like to make available?
Yes.
Okay.
And if.
And how do you propose doing that? Through something,
Well, I would like to have the council to vote on it. If they have no problems with it, I'd like to contact them and see what it would take for us to get back as a corporate partner or whatever that they would be looking to do with us.
That's a great idea. I'm curious, what does the Conservancy do with the property when they buy it from a landowner? Do they,
They let it
like,
sit.
It's really more of conservation easements is a lot of what they do. So they will pay for it, but pay to put an easement on the property where you limit all your development rights. And usually you can, it's negotiated, and it's also with federal tax regulations, but it's how much you can develop, but you can still have a house in limited use. But you agree, it's basically, it preserves it, and it sets forth the amount of preservation in the easement.
okay.
So if
So
you
that-
put the easement on 40 acres and say we're only going to have 4 houses, then that's how it would go. And there's a valuation on how much your fair market value was before and after with the easement, and then all these complicated tax issues, and that's why you need for them to be able to educate the people. But that's it at a very high level.
Are they also associated with the Catawba Thread Trail?
Different, but they're going to have a lot of interaction with each
Crossover.
other, and probably board members know each other, but same type of thing of preservation and use of public access, getting outside and preserving the natural wonders.
I'm all for it. If you want to get a hold of them, Wayne, by all means.
If nothing else, I have no idea, I haven't spoken to them, but I would like for them to come and speak to us, either in a meeting or something.
I think it's
so
a
we
great
can have
idea.
questions.
Just, we'll put it on the agenda, have work session would be great.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? No other open topics? Moving on, review of action items. Getting close.
Only ones I've got. You guys will get copy of calendar invites for me for the dates you signed up. Hunter's moving forward with his review on Weddington Chase Phase 1, possible rezoning to SFR 2. We had some reappointments tonight and some board term changes on the consent agenda, so I'm going to move forward with the changes for that. And Wayne's going to reach out to the Catawba Land Conservancy, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Any comments on that? All right. Review of the mayor pro Kim list.
My
Hold on, I'm actually not
micromanager
ready for
list.
once. We'll pull it up here.
Okay, this is really for us. We need to make sure that we've reviewed the stormwater and pavement condition study before our work session so that we can have a conversation with Davey about that. We also need to get back with Hunter about the Marvin Loop expansion and if we're good with the routing on that. Maybe you could resend that to us. You emailed it out and you wanted us to give you a thumbs up, thumbs down. So we need to tell you that. So we'll talk about that in the planner's report at our work session meeting. And we need to be working on talking to all the applicants for the annexation study. We need to have that, try to have that done by our next work session.
One note, I do expect 2 more applications to be coming in probably in the next few days.
Okay, so let's keep working on that list and calling them and talking to them and by our work session. That's it. Thanks.
All right. Next up, council comments. Start on that end, John.
Just, you mentioned the annexation study group. I have had an opportunity to talk to all of the applicants so far. Good conversations with them all. Look forward to a couple of more coming in. But yeah, I think look forward to working with that group.
Good. Andy, nothing? Bob, nothing?
I'll go along with John. I've called them all, but 2 of them have not called me back. I've left messages and things, but I've talked to the others, 3 out of the 5.
So wasn't it the last meeting you said you had left messages with the same 2 people still haven't gotten back to you?
No, not yet.
All right.
No names.
Just a huge thanks to Bob Nunnenkamp for his service. I know he's been doing this for a long time, and he's really stepped up in many different ways for the village of Marvin, so a huge thanks to Bob. Thanks to staff as always. You do an amazing job, and to our deputies, thank you for what you do. Be safe, but again, it's a job that many of us won't step up to do, but, so, thank you.
Kim?
Thanks for not skipping me since I skipped you last
We're
time.
so close.
I apologize.
The lady in red.
No, sorry. I too would like to thank Bob Nunnenkamp. I had the pleasure to work with him on Parks Rec and Greenway while I was the liaison, and he really was an asset to the village, and he will be missed on that board. I hope he doesn't disappear from our events and coming out and seeing us, but thank you, Bob, for all that you've done for Marvin and establishing Marsh, so thank you to him.
Yeah, I would agree. And thinking back and how long I've known Bob and his wife, he's done a really nice job here and was very involved in, that's the kind of resident of Marvin you'd like to see and that is involved, and we really appreciated his service, so thank you. Also, thanks to our sheriff's officers and staff, obviously. You guys are always there doing the great work. A reminder for all those, since we are in vacation time frame right now, everyone's off, that you have an opportunity to reach out to the sheriff's officer or sheriff's department and let them know that you would be gone certain times of the day, and officers, I believe, would make note of that and keep a special eye on your place. So if you are leaving, I know that's still available. I know there's work, we just got, I think all of us got this, and I'd encourage you all to read it, is this updated survey that they would like to put out. I think we're still ways.
It just came to us.
Oh, I know, it just came today.
To us.
Oh, it just came to us.
Working on the
Okay,
survey.
I'm sorry.
It came to the group working.
I didn't know it just came to us. I thought it was to all council. No, you didn't. Okay, I wasn't paying attention who it came to, but I would say Kim and I had already talked that we do need to talk about maybe bringing this. And then one final note, I'll probably get a little pushback from council, but this is for Tyler. I was in Seabrook for July 4th, celebrating Independence Day, and I will tell you, they do it better and better every year, and it's part of the club. And this year it was a little different, where you could be a non-club member and still attend by just purchasing tickets to buy food at the event. And there were maybe 2,000 people there at Seabrook at the driving range waiting for the fireworks to go off. Independence, celebrating independence, and maybe, just maybe, there could be talks with someone like Firethorn, another private club, to combine that with Marvin Day, because Marvin Day was an Independence Day, and it is something where it would benefit the club if they're looking for membership, because that's a way to showcase that, and it's a day that we look at it. But it just got me thinking, because every year I go there, it gets bigger and better. They're putting off the fireworks, addresses the fireworks issue, and we just, that day up until that night, we could still have events at, because everyone has off for, this way we're not worrying about what day it is and trying to fix a special day and getting the parking and all of those things. But just a thought, maybe you can approach the committee members in discussing, and maybe Firethorn wants nothing to do with it. But in my mind, I looked at how many people were there, and it gets bigger and bigger every year, and I guarantee you they were not all members of the club, but there was a way to purchase tickets, to get the food, whether it's food trucks that they had or the club was providing it. Something to think about, where we're not beating ourselves up and spending all this money to celebrate. We can celebrate Marvin Day the same day, and maybe we get a little more out of it, and, just a thought. But anyway, with that, I will ask for the, we're closing the meeting, we're going into closed session. No closed session. Meeting is adjourned. I need a
So
motion
moved.
to meeting adjourned.
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you all. I'm an idea guy, Kim.
Do you
I'm an
want
idea.
Marvin Day to be on July 4th now?
Why not? No, think about it. It's like, we don't have to deal with fireworks. We have to deal with parking.
Huh?
And you have an event at Easter Park anyway.
Yeah, but nobody will show up to that. They'll just come to the fireworks.
That's fine.
Yeah, maybe.
We still have a band. Maybe have the band at Firethorn, and we
You
take
mean
care
like
of it.
they did on Marvin Day?
What? What do you mean?
They had a band, a free concert on Marvin Day at Firethorn. And
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
Firethorn
Yeah,
was
see,
sponsored